So I'll be talking to you about a number of issues related to how biodiversity relates to agriculture and food security overall. I will not present you any numbers. It's just an argument of the issues as a presentation, and hopefully along the day you will have opportunity to discuss in a more quantitative way some aspects related to this. So that we face a number of challenges in terms of increasing food production, but also access to food and the quality of food, the nutritional aspects. So we need to discuss what kind of strategies we need to pursue, what are examples of solutions that we have for sustainable agriculture and food and nutrition security, and what are the needs and opportunities that we have, especially following up on the Rio+20 outcomes and all these processes that are taking place in New York and all over the world, to the consultations to design a more sustainable development agenda. So this is a huge, unique opportunity for all of us to really highlight the values of biodiversity, the highlights and the importance of the food security agenda. At the same time, there are risks, and I participated recently in a consultation in The Hague in the Netherlands on water. And it was a very good discussion with many different perspectives presented there. But at the end of the day, the take-home message was just we need to guarantee the rights for access to water. There was no emphasis on how to deliver this. And I think the how is something we need to pay more attention in a discussion such as this. It's not enough to say we need to produce more food, we need to guarantee access, but how do we deliver? So it's here that I think biodiversity is important, that ecosystems are important for our discussions. So I will also mention the strategic plan for biodiversity, which was adopted under the CBD for this decade, and also discuss about the need for a more integrated approach. So I'm already anticipating my conclusion. I think we need an integrated approach. It's not enough just to fight for water, for energy, for food, health, etc. I think it's an opportunity for us to propose a change in the way we do business in a more integrated way, because ecosystems and biodiversity can support food security, can support access to water, can support health, can support provision of energy. And if all these sectors work together, we can deliver more. And finally, I want to stress the importance of this initiative of the Commission to produce the first status of biodiversity report to highlight the different aspects of biodiversity and how it is important for agriculture overall in all its aspects and for food security. So we have many challenges to face. We have declining genetic resources for food and agriculture. This has been going on for quite some time, especially this last century. We face increasing competition for land use and water use. Just if we remember urbanization, the number of people living in urban areas will double in the next 2 decades, and consuming a lot of land for urbanization and infrastructure. We need to cope with increasing variation in the availability of water. So the issues of droughts and floods that comes together with climate change. We need to face the issue of declining ecosystem services, which we tend to take for granted, but we shouldn't, and we need to pay more attention how to maintain these services related to water, nutrition, carbon sequestration, pollination, pest control, etc., regulation of soil fertility, etc. And we have conflicts even within the agriculture sector between different kinds of agriculture, the large-scale industrial agriculture, the small-scale agriculture, organic agriculture, conventional agriculture, GM agriculture. So how can we cope and find room for all these different approaches to, and kinds of agriculture? And I would hope that in the future we will still have a very diverse agriculture out there and not just a single type of agriculture. And our, of course, the increasing overdependence on a very narrow range of food sources. So this is increasing our vulnerability. So if anything happens with one of these key crops, for example, we will face a big problem. I just have to remind you about the famine in Ireland in the mid-19th century, with the blight that attacked the potato crops and the large number of people that died because of that, the overdependence on a single crop. And also we have to remember that we need to reduce the impacts of agriculture on the environment so that agriculture can benefit from environmental and ecosystem services. Strategies that we can utilize. So we should be stressing the agenda for food and nutrition security, but with emphasis on sustainability, with an emphasis on resilience. So how can we develop more resilient landscapes and seascapes to cope with increased variance in terms of water, temperature, and other climate variables. And we should be able to go beyond just the discussion of increased production, because food security is more than just increased production. We have to promote the access to food. So there's an issue of the problem of food prices, and we had a recent crisis a few years ago about food price. So we need to promote food production everywhere, so to enhance the sustainability and the security of food supply. And we have to increase the efficiency of food production at all scales, not only the productivity aspects, but the sustainability aspects. We have to create, as I said, more resilient and diverse landscapes and seascapes, conserve and enhance ecosystem services, and hopefully look for win-win solutions. To a large extent, the biodiversity agenda has been, let's say, captured by the environment sector. I would like to see the agriculture sector having more ownership for the biodiversity agenda, because agriculture, everything you do in agriculture depends on biodiversity in one way or another. So, in terms of genetic resources, I would like to stress the need for more attention to in situ conservation. So there has been a lot of progress in recent times in terms of gene banks, for example, and this is great, this is important, necessary to promote the research. But it's in the field that biodiversity adapts to changing conditions. So if we want to maintain a healthy planet and a resilient planet, we cannot over-depend just on gene banks. We need to take more care with our biodiversity resources and the genetic resources and the ecosystem services that go with them in the field, on-farm conservation, other kinds of in situ conservation like protected areas, community-based management, indigenous lands, etc. That's where all the diversity of genetic resources come from. And we should be able to maintain all that diversity for the future. So to deal with these things, we also need, as I already mentioned, to stress on maintaining a diverse agriculture approach. So the traditional and local agriculture production of food, for example, is key for food security, and it's the source, in the end, of genetic diversity that we should be aiming to protect. Ecosystem service. We have been talking a lot about ecosystem service, but perhaps not paying enough attention to really see what we need to do actually in our management practices to change so that we can maintain or restore ecosystem services. Pollination for one. Many farmers are not aware that several of their crops depend totally on pollination. So they take, and even if they are aware, they take it for granted. Okay, the pollinators will take care of it. But if we are overutilizing pesticides, if we are destroying the neighboring forests, we were losing the pollination service that are provided by bees and other kinds of animals. The issue of pest and disease control is also paramount. But remember, we need to provide the ecosystems in a production landscape that can provide for the maintenance of the life cycle of these biocontrol organisms. If we destroy certain kinds of ecosystems, we will lose these biocontrol organisms. And also we have, again, to look into the overuse of pesticides, of antibiotics and other chemicals that are disrupting these natural services. And also the links with water. So agriculture depends, it's the main user of water, and at the same time we are competing with other uses of water, and we need to maintain the availability of water within production landscapes. Soil biodiversity. We cannot have agriculture without fertile soils. And when we talk about fertile soils, we're talking about organic matter, and we're talking about soil biodiversity. It's the organisms that live in the soil that provide the physical structure of the soil to absorb the water of the rain, for example, and reduce the impacts of floods and make water available during drought times. And it's the soil biodiversity that enhance the soil fertility, the fixation of nitrogen, the mycorrhiza that are important to enhance absorption of nutrients by the roots of plants, etc. And so the soil biodiversity is quite key, and as you know, we have been losing soil all over the world. The extent of degraded soils and degraded ecosystems is huge, and we should be aiming at restoring these areas instead of expanding food production areas over natural ecosystems, because that would be a lose-lose strategy, and we need a win-win strategy. This is just an example of the by utilizing appropriate agriculture practice, we can maintain some of these ecosystem services. So here, no tillage helps maintain the structure of the soil and its capacity to absorb water on the left, as compared to a standard tillage agriculture. And I mentioned already climate change, and climate change is all about uncertainties. So we are increasing variability, and we are increasing our uncertainty for the future. So we need to enhance our work on adaptation. Yes, we need to continue to mitigate, to reduce emission of greenhouse gases, but we should by now be doing much more than we are in terms of promoting adaptation for future scenarios. So the species are already adapting on their own, but our management practices, the way we deal with landscapes and seascapes are not. So we should be paying much more attention to this so that we have more resilient landscapes. So again, one of the answers, I think, is to look at in a more integrated way to the landscapes where we have production areas, conservation areas, and all sorts of different land uses that in combination provide for a more sustainable and resilient landscape. So, to summarize, the argument is that biodiversity is part of the solution. Yes, we're losing biodiversity, so many people discuss the problem of biodiversity, but we shouldn't be discussing the problem of biodiversity. We should be discussing how to benefit from biodiversity, how to make sure that the way we manage ecosystems in our production areas really benefit from biodiversity for all those reasons that I gave you. And to do that, we need win-win approach. We need to bring together farmers, conservationists, foresters, water managers to work together. And if each sector brings in their expertise and brings in their mechanism and their resources, including the financial resources, collectively we can do more. We can deliver more in terms of conserving and restoring biodiversity and ecosystem service to benefit not only agriculture, but benefit all these other agendas like water supply, energy supply, health, poverty eradication, etc. So to finalize, just like to mention to you that the CBD has adopted in 2010 the current strategic plan for the decade, which adopted as a vision that by 2050 biodiversity is valued, conserved, restored, and wisely used, maintaining ecosystem services, sustaining a healthy planet, and delivering benefits essential for all people. In the more short-term mission is to take effective and urgent action to halt biodiversity loss in order to ensure that by 2020 ecosystems are resilient and continue to provide essential services, thereby securing the planet's variety of life and contributing to human well-being and poverty eradication. And we have, as you know, agreed on 20 global biodiversity targets, and many of them are linked with agriculture. So we have target 3 to review the incentive measures to get rid of those that have perverse impacts on biodiversity and to enhance those that have a positive impact. We need to promote sustainable production and sustainable consumption overall. We need target 7 deals with the issue of promoting sustainable agriculture, including aquaculture and forestry. Target 8 is to reduce pollution, and in the agriculture sector we have to look at the excess use of fertilizer, herbicides and pesticides and antibiotics. Target 13 is about maintaining genetic diversity, especially those important for human well-being. Target 14 is to maintain ecosystem services important for humanity. Target 15 is about enhancing ecosystem resilience and capturing carbon and restoring degraded ecosystems. Target 16 is to operationalize the Nagoya Protocol and to really promote benefit sharing so that we had a more equitable transactions between those that are the providers of genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge and those that are the users of those to produce new products, new process for commercial use. And target 18 is about the conservation and maintenance of traditional knowledge, which is quite important. I'm finishing, Brad. So we have also a global strategy for plant conservation as part of that, with several specific targets. Several of them also relate to biodiversity. And I just want to finalize with maybe a simplistic drawing here of a landscape that we should be aiming at, to have a diverse landscape where we can maintain part of the natural ecosystems, protecting the ecosystem services, protecting the water, but with different kinds of land uses. So plantations, small diverse agriculture, livestock, aquaculture. So all of that should be part of a more integrated landscape, forestry. So all these should be part of a diverse landscape. We see this in several places of the world, but at the same time, in many places of the world, we are going in an opposite direction, just having single types of land use overall and losing the diverse and losing a more sustainable and resilient landscapes. So, just to finalize this discussion here, knowledge. We need to make use of the existing knowledge, and there's a lot of the existing knowledge, to provide the solutions, so we don't need to start from scratch. At the same time, there are, yes, knowledge gaps that need to deserve more attention from our researchers so that we can better support management and decision-making in this area. So the conclusions I already anticipated, and with that, I'd like to end my presentation and look forward to the discussions. Thank you very much.